Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later because we're here to check out Age of the Primes Silverbolt today, thanks to the fine folks at transforverse.eu, and I gotta tell you, I've been really looking forward to this one. And no doubt a large part of that appeal is the combined Superion form, of which we're now 3 members deep, you know, the aerial bots, so we are working our way towards it, and I've been having great fun with it as well, but there is more to say about this set besides, and that all starts with Silverbolt himself. First up, there's plenty to say about this jet mode, which is really rather nice and quite tidy overall, and of course it's an unlicensed, legally distinct approximation of a Concorde. And it's definitely not a one-to-one of the real thing, but there are some decent nods in that direction, such as being able to drop the nose slightly like that to kind of create that real-world look. And obviously it is quite small as an alt mode, like compared to a real-world Concorde, this is very much scaled down, which is kind of a real necessity really. It's always been the case with Silverbolt toys, just compared to the other jets. I do really like the gold paint that they've used for all the windows along here and for the cockpit. It catches the light nicely and looks really good. Pretty tidy all over this back section as well, with a couple of nice Autobot tampos, so from a top view it looks pretty cohesive. Fair to say it's once you flip this guy over that you'll start to see some of the compromises going on. He's got all this kind of like robot mode kibble and combined mode bits going on underneath. And look, for my money, I'm fairly forgiving with this kind of thing, right? Jet modes traditionally in Transformers often have a lot of kibble underneath them just like this. It's not unusual by any means, and some of this stuff has to go somewhere, right? Probably the most egregious part are the robot mode feet, which are just kind of dangling on the side there, very hard to get away from, and they do stick out from the side of the wings as well. Or, you know, the combined mode head, which is fairly omnipresent, is a bit hard to get away from. It does have the landing gear, the front landing gear just coming out the back of it, which I think is a really neat touch, and actually, to be fair, you can remove these antennae as well, which might clean it up a little bit. I mean, they just unplug easily enough, just come out like so, and that definitely makes it look a little bit cleaner and a little bit more indistinct, I suppose. It's not something I'm going to fuss about, but it's an option if you want it. Meanwhile, I'm trying to decide what I think about the rear landing gear being made up of these hip flaps. They just kind of fold up and click into place just there with little faux wheels on them. They don't roll or anything like this, it's purely for show, but I suppose it's sort of clever, but a little bit kibbly too. Of course, if you want, you can just fold all that landing gear away, and you can then also plug in the character's gun on the underneath of the nose cone there, and that works pretty well, right? Like in terms of armed up Concorde ready for battle, that, you know, is about as good as it gets, I think. Overall though, I got precious little to grumble about here. It's a fun part of this overall package, it does the Concorde mode nicely enough, and it does look really good with the other aerial bots so far as well, so whilst it might not be perfect, job's a good one in my opinion. Of course, there is more to say about this vehicle mode because there's actually a whole other section to bring in and talk about now. It's got junk in the trunk. But what you have here, of course, is the bulk of the combined mode for Superion. Like, Silverbolt himself is part of that as well, but this is all the kind of arms and legs and that kind of stuff, right? And look, we don't have time to get into the whole debate about the relative merits of so-called skeleton combiners today, but suffice it to say, I know that not everybody is into this approach, and I think that's more than fair enough. For my part, it really doesn't bother me, and actually taking this thing on face value and kind of just looking at it purely on its own merit, this bit actually does some really clever stuff. First things first though, you can connect it all to the back of the jet mode, and in order to do that you just want to kind of bring those wings up and fold down that tail fin like so, and fold away that landing gear as well because there won't be any need for it in the combined mode. And then you want to use these big red clips and just actually get those onto the sort of robot mode thighs just there, and then bring these wings down into place to kind of lock it all together. And there we go, job done. And look, I know it looks kind of inherently ridiculous, but do you know what? I actually kind of like it. I think it's great fun, and it sort of works to me, you know? First, let's just acknowledge that you don't have to use this back section, right? Like the front bit, Silverbolt, that is the jet form. This is all optional extras to kind of make use of the combined mode bits, and I don't think this is too bad in terms of a solution. You know, it's not the most inherently ridiculous thing I've ever seen in Transformers, let's put it that way. Like, to my eye, this sort of has quite cool flying fortress vibes to it, you know, like mobile transport that Silverbolt is kind of carrying along, and I honestly think it's the kind of thing that as a kid I would have had a lot of fun with. It would have sparked my imagination somehow. And again, I totally get why it's not for everybody, and some people are really aggrieved by it, but it doesn't do that to me, you know? I look at it and it makes me smile, if nothing else. It's totally ridiculous, I accept all of that, but what can I say? It doesn't offend me, let's put it that way. Now, in terms of what's actually going on here, it's remarkably solid actually, and everything's quite compact and sort of neatly tidied away. It does look a bit like a folded up Superion, but that's to be expected. And there are some really neat little touches. I love the way that they've integrated the combine mode weapon here, for example. It is fairly obvious that you've got a whacking great big pair of thighs sticking out the back there, but it's not too bad. One thing I might have liked to have seen is the ability to put the jets on top of here somehow using the combine mode ports, and you can kind of do that, like they will nestle into place and kind of peg in, but you need to move this back section out the way, so that's a little bit of a shame. I think something could have been done there. And yes, ultimately this isn't as straightforward or as tidy a solution as Menace saw, for obvious reasons. The trailer there brings with it a lot of advantages that the Silverbolt Superion solution just simply doesn't have, but for better or for worse, like it or love it, I think it's pretty clever actually what they've done here, and again, you don't have to use it. Anyway, this whole back section does do more once we get to transformation, as we'll see, but before all of that, I do want to mention that this video is brought to you by the lovely folks at Transforverse.eu, who are a European Transformers site specialising in robots in disguise, and they got tons of stuff in stock and available for pre-order right now. So if you live in Europe, you should absolutely go and give them a look. They've got fast, good quality, low cost shipping options, and if you check out the video description below, you'll find a link where you can get the occasional discount as well, so what's not to like? Go and check them out, it's Transforverse.eu. Anyway, it's time for us to plow on today with Silverbolt, so let's get on with transformation. There we go, that's transformation done. All really rather simple, but quite clever in places, and it leaves you with both Silverbolt and his battle platform, but we'll talk about that in a minute, because it's the man himself we want to focus on first. Now, I gotta say, when this guy was first unveiled and they did all the promotional pictures of him, I really wasn't sure what to expect, because there was some kind of weird quality to that photography that made this guy look a little bit ropey, not gonna lie, but I have to say that in hand, he's totally won me over. First up, I'm really digging that head sculpt. It's quite a distinct head shape. I am surprised to see silver on the face, I gotta say. I've become more accustomed to the kind of flat grey from some of the more recent Studio Series releases and that kind of thing, but it works. I will say there's not a lot of paint going on. I mean, most of it is bare plastic, and there's a little bit of colour with like the yellow and the red highlights and things like this, but overall it is quite drab in terms of colours, and I think that's just sort of the inherent character model, really. It kind of is what it is. This Autobot logo is a bit of a weird one, because it's so large that it kind of goes over the moulding, if anything. That looks a bit strange, like it's not really how it's supposed to be, but weird choice. And there's some nice moulded detail and everything. I do think that maybe a couple of paint applications here, like a few little highlights or something, wouldn't have gone amiss, I've got to say. And there's something about these feet that really just don't work for me. I don't know, like very long heels, which are kind of necessary to keep him stable, but then very flat at the kind of front of the feet and kind of stubby, if anything, so just a slightly strange look. I like how he's got his little faux wings on the shoulders though, that's a neat touch. And all things considered, what this has to do, it's pretty tidy actually, like the back, everything. There is kibble, obviously, which is again inherent to the character model, but it's really not that bad at all. And if you really want to, you can fold the wings backwards and kind of tuck those away, or you can kind of fan them out to the sides or have them at an angle, so options. Mostly though, I just can't get over how much better he looks in hand. I really do think they did him dirty in that promotional photography, because honestly what I'm seeing here, I like it a lot. Plenty of articulation too. I mean, the head will move very freely from side to side and can look up and down. Got good range at the shoulders, and they'll come all the way out to the sides as well, and of course you've got a little bicep rotation in there. You get just a little bit over a 90-degree bend at the elbow, although there is no wrist swivel, which is a little bit weird because of the way that the fists fold out, so that is a little bit of a shame. Now there is a waist swivel, but it's a strange one because it's kind of like tucked in here around the wings and everything, so a little bit hard to get to and a bit stiff, but it can be done. And again, you've got those landing gear sections for the hip flaps, so if you get those out the way, you've got nice clicky ratchets which allow the hips to go up to about 90 degrees just there, and then you've got a thigh rotation as well. Now thanks to transformation, there is actually a double joint of sorts at the knee, so technically it's not part of the articulation, but it will allow you to go back that little bit further. And you do have ankle tilt as well. They will click into place in kind of a neutral stance, but it's not too bad to just unclick them again, and then that works pretty well. Add it all up, and he's not the most articulated bot I've ever come across, but you know what? He gets the job done, and he looks pretty good whilst he's doing it. Then of course you've got the weapons platform thing, which again I want to stress is just a bit of fun, really. So if this is not your jam, you know, you don't like the whole kind of skeleton thing, you can just put it to one side. I mean, there's little doubt that this is folded up Superion parts, right? Like, we can all see that, but still, it's an option and looks pretty cool with the gun mounted on top at least. And genuinely, I can't feel too cynical about this for two reasons. One, again, I know that as a kid, I would have lapped this up, right? Like, I would have been all into this kind of thing. And two, I've made that assertion because my own child thinks exactly the same. He thinks this is awesome, so I'm tempted to give it a total pass in that regard. You know, if it's going to stoke the imagination, it's a bit of fun for play, it can't be all bad. And it's a strange one because, you know, it's so much simpler than the equivalent battle platform section that came with Legacy Motormaster, right? Like, part of me kind of prefers it for that. I don't know, like, I really like the central weapon on the Motormaster version, but this to me somehow, there's just a sort of elegance to it. It is what it is, and you like it or you don't. I don't know. But, you know, regardless of which is better, I think they've both got their fun to them, and I think it's a really neat nod towards the sort of station modes that the original 1986 toys had. You know, this is just like a really over-the-top version of that, if anything, and hey, look, it's a bit of a laugh, isn't it? And you know, even if you put all of that gumph to the side, I do think that these two look really, really good together. Quite different in their ways. Like, Silverbolt is a lot more straightforward animation accurate, whereas Motormaster looks a little bit more stylized. But hey, you know what? They work and they look good together. It's also really neat to see him versus that 1986 original toy. And, you know, with all its blinging chrome and everything, it's always been a bit of a favorite of mine. I've always enjoyed it. I do also have to commend this thing for being able to recreate the original goofy way of adding the combined mode head to the core robot form and ending up with whatever it is that you see here. It's also, by the way, quite a fitting accompaniment versus a lot of your other recent generations bots, whether that's Studio Series, Age of the Primes, whatever it is, it fits in there really nicely and does the character justice. Ultimately, where he looks most at home though is of course with his other Age of the Primes aerial bots, and you know what, I know I was a little bit harsh on these limb guys. I'm liking how this is coming together. You know, they do look good together, and I am excited to complete the set. I am very excited to see the full combined mode, and yeah, it's coming together nicely. Speaking of combined mode though, we got more to go, so let's get on with the next transformation and see how it's looking so far. Okay, well, let's combine mode transformation done, and I gotta tell you, I think it's really, really enjoyable. I love how it all comes together. There's some exceptionally clever stuff in there as well, like the way that Silverbolt plugs in and things like this, and yeah, I know people are gonna have plenty of stuff to say about the whole skeleton thing, and I'm sympathetic to that, but you know what? I like it a lot, and I think the result is pretty spectacular as well. And obviously he's looking a wee bit hollow at the moment, but it really does not take long to start plugging on those jet parts they just attach quite securely. Now with the arms, you can actually separate them once they're already on the arm. Like you put the jet on whole and then you can unfold the arm, transform it, and it splits the jet in half, much as you could with the cars on Menasor. But actually I've opted to do it this way because it's kind of stiff, even though it's fun to do it the other way. Either way, the result is the same, and you can kind of fold the wings however you want them, or actually you can fold them over that way as well, which is quite cool, but it's all in place and looks pretty good. I will say that the ratchet joint on my copy is a little bit loose just there, so that is really frustrating. I'm sure I'm going to be able to tighten it, so I'll give it a little bit of a fix. I have tried the other one and that fares much better, but definitely this one got a bit of looseness to it. As for the legs, it's the same as Menasor. You know, the jets plug on at the back in this case, and there's this little switch just here that when it's activated fills in the front of the shin just there. It's all automatic, so kind of a cool feature. A little bit strange, admittedly, but still, I think that's pretty nifty. And so from the rear, you just want to make sure that the jet is tabbed in nicely, and then that just activates that switch there to kind of fill in the front of the leg. Very easy. And there you go, it's all filled in. And I know some people do not like this solution, purely and simply. I mean, it does look a little bit strange from the front because it still kind of looks like something should go here. I don't know, like the way it sort of concaves in a little bit, I think kind of gives that impression, if anything. And yeah, there is a bit hanging off the back there, but it really doesn't bother me any. I mean, you can still fold the leg and everything for articulation, so that's all good. And honestly, it doesn't stick out that much, right? Like, I get why it bothers some people, as they say. Maybe it could have been done a different way, but here we are. And I gotta say, still pretty limber, you know, for a combined mode of this size and whatever else. It's fairly well articulated, poses really nice, and I did actually get to mess with this thing complete with all the aerial bots attached at TF Nation this year, and I've gotta tell you, it was great. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I think their head sculpt is great. Just really, really good. Always loved Superion's look from the cartoon, and this just recreates it really nicely. Also, a big fan of how they've incorporated the gun that kind of sits on the forearm just here, like a little arm cannon. That is straight from the cartoon. You don't have to have it that way. You can hold it in hand more traditionally as well, but this has always appealed to me personally. I know not everybody's into the whole combiner frame skeleton system thing, but honestly, I think the results here speak for themselves. You know, it equals a very nicely proportioned combined mode, and it's just pretty much what I would want from a modern Superion, you know? It's really, really good. It's also, by the way, looking rather spectacular next to Optimus Prime and Jazz and all kinds of other Generations bots. I think this is going to be really something once it's all done. Particularly, you know, when you get like Defensor on the go and whatever else comes next. Maybe the ultimate comparison, though, is with Legacy Menasor. And I gotta tell you, I think these two look fantastic. I actually think that maybe in some ways Superion is shaping up to be even better. I mean, for one thing, there's nothing left over in that combined mode. You know, it uses all of the bits, whereas actually with Menasor, you did get a couple of pieces set off to the side, so props to Superion for that, and yeah, I just can't wait to complete it and see this all done, you know? Fortunately, we don't have too long to look forward to that, so no doubt I'll be back for another video at some point with the full thing, all combined, but you know, for today, what can I say? It's a very definite toot. Now, as already mentioned, this video is brought to you by Transforverse.eu, a European Transformers site with tons of robots in disguise in stock and available for pre-order right now. So go and check them out. There's a link in the description below, and you can get the occasional discount using it as well. So what are you waiting for? I'd also be grateful if you could leave me a like for today's effort, please, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But otherwise, that's it from me. So have a great rest of your day, and TTFN.